So, lahat po ng pinasa ng NGCP sa consumer na hindi dapat pinasa sa consumer, kung pwede po sanang matignan at kung paano natin i-refund sa consumer, not necessarily in a form of rebate, but in a form of, rate adjustments moving forward.
We will do that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, salamat. Medyo komplikado ang ating tinatalakay. Susubukan ko pong maging mas simple. Umpisahan ko na po sa NGCP na subcontractor ng ating gobyerno na siya po ang operator and taga-maintain ng highway na dinadaanan ng kuryente natin. Tama ba ang aking pag-describe ng NGCP USEC, Sharon?
Mr. Chair, yes, sir. As a transmission network provider, yun yung infrastructure, and then systems operator, yun yung parang conductor siya.
Yes, tama. At ang highway na yan ay pagmamayari ng ating gobyerno through Transco.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes. At ang NGCP ay subcontractor. In other words, meron siyang kontrata with our government. At ang tawag sa kontrata na yan ay concessionaire agreement, kaya ang NGCP ay isang concessionaire.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
At nagbabayad ng concession fee sa gobyerno.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. At bilang concessionaire, ang NGCP ay public utility. Tama ba yun?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. At sa ilalim ng Public Service Act as amended, alam kong alam na alam mo to, Yusek Sharon, dahil ikaw ang nag-defend ng batas na to. Ang NGCP ay natural monopoly. Tama ba yun?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
At dahil siya ay natural monopoly, ano ang implication nito pagdating sa cost efficiency? Ibig sabihin, meron ba tong implication sa presyo ng kuryente?
Well, the monopoly by nature kasi, if you have more than one, it becomes an expensive utility. That is, and so a monopoly makes sense in this. Actually, it's practically the only monopoly in the country, no? Kasi sa grid, wala ka namang ibang utility that it's nationwide monopoly. But as a safeguard, we have ERC to regulate it, Madam Chair.
So, Mr. Chair, usually, pag sinasabing monopoly, mahal dapat. Di ba? Yun ang iniisip natin. Kaya lang, sa ilalim ng batas, pag natural monopoly siya, and in this case, nakakategorize siya as a natural monopoly, exception siya kasi by its nature, dahil sa kanyang technology, dapat nagiging more cost-efficient siya. Parang ganon. Tama ba yun?
Yes, Madam Chair.
So inaasahan natin na dapat mag-operate siya in a way na mapapababa dapat niya ang presyo ng kuryente. Tama ba yun?
Correct, Mr. Chair, because if we have two transmission companies and rely on competition to lower the cost, hindi yan effective in this sense because of the nature of the business. Dalawang infrastructure gagastusan mo, then that won't make sense. So that is the purpose of EPIRA and also the franchise na by having one, it will redound to cost efficiency and lower prices for the consumers.
So yon ay in theory. Okay, so pabalik ako sa'yo. So right now, naniniwala ka ba na ang charge ngayon ng NGCP, meaning yung wheeling charges. Tama ba yon? Yun ba, magkano ba ngayon ang wheeling charges ng NGCP per kilowatt hour?
Madam Chair, I submit to the opinion of the
Pwede ba
statement
namin
of
malaman?
ERC kasi sila yung nagre-regulate ng prices, Madam Chair. Mr. Chair pala.
Mr. Chair, based on NGCP's own representations dun po sa billing, consumer bill updates nila. For November 2024, for example, the wheeling charges, which we call Power Delivery Service, PDS, in Luzon is 46 centavos per kilowatt hour. In Visayas, it's 36 centavos per kilowatt hour. In Mindanao, 47. On the average in the Philippines, 45 centavos per
Okay.
kilowatt hour.
How does this compare to other countries?
Ay, naku.
So bilang isang regulator,
Apo.
so tama ba na ayon sa concessionaire agreement, ang nakadesignate na regulator ay ang ERC? Tama ba?
Tama po. At ayon din po sa EPIRA. Apo.
Anong role ng DOE?
DOE is the policy side. So if there are any infractions on even in the policy, no, or in their franchise, then they go to ERC for whatever penalty or impositions. We just issue the policies.
So pagdating sa PSA, kapag may violations, yung administrative agency sa ilalim ng PSA, yan ang ERC.
Yes, for the regulation, yes.
Okay. So dapat alam ng ERC kung ano ang global comparison. So kung about 46 centavos per kilowatt hour dito, magkano siya halimbawa sa Vietnam?
Madam, Mr. Chair, hindi po, siguro po we can do a survey, may data naman po, pero hindi po madaling mag-compare kasi po in other jurisdictions like Vietnam, as you cited, they are still what we call vertically integrated utility. So, yung kakumpara lang po natin in our region, Southeast Asia, would likely be Singapore. Pero we would also caution against comparison.
Kasi masyado maliit.
Masyado pong maliit, tsaka GOCCs din naman po yung ibang
So,
players po
subsidized.
nila. Opo.
So wala kang sense kung mura ba siya o mahal?
Not in the global comparison
Paano,
sense.
anong basihan mo? Di ba, natural monopoly siya. So, paano mo malalaman kung pinaperform niya ang kanyang mandato? Di ba?
Opo. Meron po tayong under the regulatory framework that governs NGCP, meron po tayong tinatawag na building blocks for its reset. Included po doon, yung global comparison po doon, papasok doon sa WACC, for example, because basket of elements po yung magko-compose ng WACC, which includes some global risk component also. Pero maliit lang po yun. Yung other po are performance parameters that the ERC would set. But we also have consultants, na alala ko lang po, na that are also exposed to other jurisdictions.
Okay,
Maybe
so,
they can
long and
provide.
short, ano ang assessment ninyo pagdating sa wheeling charges ng NGCP?
Right now, Mr. Chair, because we are finalizing our reset, I think it has been disclosed and it's public knowledge already that there has been no reset of the NGCP rates since 2011. So, and based on our review, for example, just the WACC component, that should have been adjusted, lowered over
So,
the
mataas.
last few years. So mataas po siya talaga pag dun po natin binase.
Kasi meron akong nakita, well, Google search lang naman, ang nakita ko is sa Vietnam, 0.19 per kilowatt hour. So, pag
Pero yun
kinonvert
nga po,
in
it's
pesos.
government controlled po kasi yung...
Well, yun na nga. So, ba't sinasabi ko nga, well, again, kaya kung gustong tanungin sa inyo, pero, well, unang tingin, ang laki ng difference. So, pwede bang in the next hearing ay bigyan nyo kami ng global comparison?
We will submit, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so itutuloy ko na yung tanong ko relating to the refund. So earlier, nasabi po ninyo na 21 billion yung, should I say, charges na hindi dapat. Tama naman yon, di ba? Is that accurate? From
On the-
2016 to 2022.
That's the franchise tax.
Ito po
Mr.
yung
Chair.
3%
Opo, tama po.
franchise tax na pinasa sa consumers na sa tingin ninyo hindi dapat.
Tama po, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so anong status nun? May pag-asa po ba na i-refund yan?
Yan, based on the hearing in the other committee, Mr. Chair, we've commenced the review, revisiting of that possibility to refund. We hope to complete it within the month para po makapag-report po kami sa committee ulit ng action ng commission.
So earlier, tinanong kita, Chair, kung bakit hindi nyo po alam kung magkano dapat yung from 2011 to 2015.
Mr. Chair, just to correct, yung 2011 to 2015, meron pong finalized na third regulatory reset doon. So, okay lang. Yung pong 2016 onwards, yun po yung fina-finalize pa lang
Hindi
po.
ba it's just a matter of determining kung magkano ba yung binayad nila na hindi ba ganon ka-straightforward kung ano yung 3% franchise tax?
You're just talking about the franchise tax,
Yes,
Mr.
di ba?
Chair.
Yun yung 21 billion, right?
Opo. Meron naman, yun pong franchise tax, madali pong makompute, pero wala po kaming data from
Hindi ba it's as
2011.
simple as if I ask you, magkano yung franchise taxes from the time that they operated up to 2022? Magkano po yun?
We can compute it based on what on the AFS, for example, the numbers in the AFS. But Mr.
Yes.
Chair,
Hindi
what
ba yun? Hindi ba ganon ka-straightforward yun?
kasi po we wanted to vet it against the payments that they actually made to BIR. Yun po sana yung ano. But we don't have copies of the returns, of their tax
Iba
returns.
po ba yun ni-report sa...
Pwede pong iba. Opo. Pwede pong iba.
Hindi, but more or less, hindi naman may iba yun ng malaki, di ba? But so based on the financial statement, and this could be just a tentative number, based on the audited financial
we can compute,
statements.
Mr. Chair, based on the AFS.
But I have it. Based on the audited financial statements, can you confirm that it's about 18 billion? Sorry, would you have it with you? Yung total franchise taxes?
I will have it checked, Mr. Chair. Okay. Mr. Chair, just rough calculation from our end, from 2011 to November 2023, that would average, no, even 2022 po, i-cut off natin, that would average about 1.3 million pesos annually. So,
Million?
Billion po. Sorry,
1.3 billion annually. Pero paano naging 21 billion yung 2016 to 2022?
Checking now, Mr.
So I was just wondering, because based on the financial statements, yung I also got the same number, 1.3 thereabouts, so about 18 billion, which is very different from yung sinabi po ninyo kanina na 21 billion for the period covering 2016 to 2022. So malaki po yung disparity.
Opo, mga 3B. I'm trying to...
Yes, it's about 3.5
Opo.
billion per year
Yes.
for the period 2016 to 2022.
Trying to reconcile that, Mr. Chair.
But of course, mas
from
gusto
the
namin yung
total-
3.5.
Apo. Checking po kung how we reconcile. But from the initial numbers based on average, mga 18 nga po.
Sige po, but when you come back sa next hearing, so can you just give us a more, yes, and for the entire period?
Yes, we will do that, Mr. Chair.
Okay. My next question is, bakit po, dun sa nung tinignan po namin ang financial statements, why is there a line for other taxes? Hindi po ba maliwanag naman po sa franchise agreement na nagbabayad lang dapat ang NGCP ng 3% franchise tax in lieu of all other taxes? So bakit po may about
Mr. Chair,
bakit may fees of about 7 billion?
Mr. Chair, there are instances based on our review, but maybe NGCP can provide more details. But based on our review in the reset that we conducted, there were some LGUs that were imposing RPT, real property taxes and local taxes on NGCP. NGCP would pay under protest, but there were collections made. So NGCP would reflect it in their AFS. But from our reset, it's unanimous naman po yung commission dito. We did not allow it. We did not allow it to be passed on to the consumers
But
because
that was only beginning 2023.
yun pong reset namin 2016 po, yung kinocover.
So prior
namin.
to that, may determination na po ba kayo that that was passed on to the consumers?
We'll check for the past period, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chair, in other words, can they please make a more comprehensive assessment with respect to this provision? So, hindi lang po sa franchise tax, kundi dun sa all other taxes na posible pong, and fees, kasi itong provision na to, I believe, refers to not only taxes, but all other fees, hindi po ba? So, lahat po ng pinasa ng NGCP sa consumer na hindi dapat pinasa sa consumer, kung pwede po sanang matignan at kung paano natin i-refund sa consumer, not necessarily in a form of rebate, but in a form of, rate adjustments moving forward.
We will do that, Mr. Chair.
Okay, salamat. Next ko po na tanong, ay, nasan po ang representative natin mula sa BIR? Sir, kayo naman, sir, nandyan pala kayo.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Nakikinig naman kayo sa discussion, no?
Yes, Your Honor. Lumabas lang, Your Honor, for restroom, Your Honor.
So first question is, bakit malaki yung difference between yung reported na taxes dun sa financial statements versus actual collections ng BIR? Could you kindly just work na lang with the ARC to do the reconciliation?
Yes, Your Honor. It's already been discussed inside of the Bureau to reconcile or look into this matter, Your Honor. And I will raise this. I will raise the request to work with the ERC, Your Honor, with our principals, Your Honor.
All right. Okay,
Thank you,
salamat. Okay. So my next question, Mr. Chair, is with respect to Section 7. This is on cross ownership. So kanina po pinag-usapan natin, actually I wanted to show the ownership structure pero diniscuss naman very comprehensively ni Kong Rog. But so I'd like to take off from there. Perhaps we should just ask Commissioner Maceda, because that is from your dissenting opinion. So, ay hindi mo verify ng NGCP ng ating mga nila attorney, nila ma'am. Hindi nyo ma-verify, right? Yung the first two lines. Tama po ba? The last two lines, sabi ninyo, yes. But the first two lines, you cannot verify.
No, not familiar, Your Honor.
But you know what, curiously, it's actually listed. If you just do a simple Google search, and just Google search Henry C. Jr., it says he's the chairman of the board of Synergy. So, hindi kayo familiar?
What is the query, Your Honor? Whether or not we are familiar with the entire structure and how it works?
Meaning the information that is listed in the first two lines.
Hindi po, Your Honor. Katulad nga po na nasabi ko sa kanina, familiar po kami NGCP. Pag nga umahon na sa magulang namin, which is Calaca, Monteoro, and State Grid, hindi na po kami masyadong familiar sa sa corporate structure ng mga yon.
Okay, but anyway, you'll be submitting documents, right?
Yes, Your Honor, and I think there's also a subpoena in that regard, Mr. Chair, to be given to the address that's reflected dun sa GIS po.
Okay. So I'd like to return, Mr. Chair, to Commissioner Masada. So, ma'am, I'd like to ask your opinion if you believe that there is a violation of Section 7 of the franchise agreement on cross ownership. Particularly the second paragraph, the grantee or any of its stockholders, directors, or officers thereof, or any of their relatives within the fourth civil degree of consanguinity and their respective spouses shall not be allowed to hold any shares of stock in any power industry player as defined in this act, etc. So in other words, kung meron po na pangalan na listed po doon sa ownership structure, if we can pull up the slide na pinakita po kanina, kung meron po sa inyong, nung sinusulat po ninyo ang inyong opinion at ginawa po ninyo yung chart na yan, may napansin po ba kayo na posibleng paglabag po ng cross-ownership provision?
Mr. Chair, Honorable Congresswoman Quimbo, my dissenting opinion principally focused on this structure. In fact, if you look at this structure, you'd find this in the order of the commission itself. This is the May 26, 2022 order. So, earlier on, there were questions as to the source of this document. This was actually a compliance by NGCP. NGCP submitted this to ERC, and it's in page 171 of the prospectus. So, with respect to the cross-ownership, my dissenting opinion did not go into that because I'm limited based on the information made available to us. But with respect to this structure, what I raise in my dissenting opinion is the fact that these corporations have interlocking directors. And if we're talking about public dispersal of shares in a public utility, the intention is to widen the reach of that dispersal. But if you have, for example, and as stated by our SEC representative earlier, when we talk about a share swap, based at least on her opinion right now, there is actually no public offering, but rather a transaction between two corporations or more. And this is exactly what happened here. But to my mind, what is more compelling in terms of concern is the fact that there are interlocking officers or owners in these companies. And to my mind, if you have such a reality, are you able now to meet the economic or share dispersal provision in the Constitution as well as in the Section 8 of 9511, RA 9511?
I should just ask either Chair Mona or Yusek Sharon. So, balikan natin ang cross-ownership provision. Ano bang ibig sabihin noon? Yusek Sharon.
Mr. Chair, if I may respond, I think this is referring to Section 45 of EPIRA, which prohibits the ownership of shares of stock of NGCP, of the transmission operator, directly or indirectly within the fourth civil degree of affinity or consanguinity. So this is under Section 45 of EPIRA. But under But
So in other words, if any of the shareholders of NGCP would be related to
Up to the fourth
any
degree.
shareholder of any other player in generation
distribution.
or distribution. So kunwari, may power plant, hindi siya dapat related
Apo.
doon.
Absolute po yun, under EPIRA. But under the franchise of NGCP, RA 9511, I'm just looking for the provision, Mr. Chair. Section 7, thank you po. Section 7 of RA 9511, the word indirectly is no longer, the phrase directly or indirectly was no longer present. So in effect, it refers to direct share. The prohibition is only on direct shares, and therefore indirect shares, there can be an interpretation that indirect shares can be allowed. Plus, there is an exception that's provided now in 9511 that
So that is your interpretation.
it will look like it, Mr. Chair, especially if the proviso is read that the cross-ownership prohibition shall not apply to a relative.
So you
by
are
blood.
looking at EPIRA. I am.
No, this one po franchise.
So the
Section-
franchise, under the franchise,
Section 7 po of the franchise,
okay.
naglagay na po siya ng exception. Sa EPIRA po, absolute. Sa franchise po, may mga exceptions po siya.
So which proviso allows?
The proviso in Section 7 says that the prohibition does not apply to any stockholder if such relative is any stockholder, director, officer of the grantee, if there is no employment, consultancy, fiduciary, and so on. Plus, if the share ownership is not more than 1% of the total outstanding shares, then that can be that's no longer covered by the prohibition. So naglagay na po ng mga exceptions in that absolute prohibition in EPIRA.
So for example, if 1% ka lang sa NGCP, okay lang.
1% po dun sa 1% po dun sa industry player. So may shares ka sa NGCP, tapos meron kang up to 1% in a listed industry player, allowed.
Then you're allowed.
Apo.